Hi, everyone. Carmen Nisco here, Launch Network. We got an awesome show made in America today. We're going to have some fun in the realm of fun anyway, right? Chris, what's going on?
Hey, Carmine, how's it going? Yeah, we got a pretty cool guest on. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and we had to reschedule a little bit. But man, his nickname, I won't spoil it yet. But to me, he's the toy god,
Wow.
an industry that I'm not real familiar with. So this is going to be a great show for me to learn a little bit about it.
You know, it's funny because we see it all the time, and everybody thinks they know about it. But the inside industry, there's a reason why certain products in this industry make it, some don't, but there's so many people that want to get into it, so it is pretty cool. But before we do that, what's happening with you, man? What's going on with your production, the Super Potty Trainer, the Shark Tank stuff? Anything crazy?
Yeah, no, it's all going good. We've had quite a bit of meetings with our Shark and his team, and really good suggestions on the next steps to get it elevated and keep that brand growing, right? Because after Shark Tank, it just literally blew up.
Yeah.
And I just got married. We've got this big UIA Inspire program coming up in September. So what a fun year it's been.
Yeah, it's going fast, and I wasn't ever really that organized, but now it's just hitting me like a ton of bricks, and it shows my unorganization coming out. So yeah, keeping up on all the stuff and all the cool things. The one good part is we got a lot of great stuff coming on to the UIA, into the industry. So that's the one thing that's good, is all the craziness is really going to be helpful for the whole industry.
And that Inspire, boy, I tell you, there's some great guests and great speakers on. It's going to be one. I mean, for me, there's no question, hands down, it will be the best event of 2021. There's no doubt in my mind.
No doubt. I mean, we can't just do like a workshop or whatever. We have to have over 50 speakers. I mean, it's
no
insane.
Kidding. And it's all not just 50 speakers. It's 50 of the best speakers in the industry. Yeah. So that should tell you something about the direction the UIA is headed.
Yeah. We're not fooling around anymore. Full bore, getting it done. And, our next speaker, if you want to introduce him, he's going to be a big part of the Inspire event.
I was just going to say, and speaking of best in the industry, right? Matt is, again, Matt Nuccio, but to me, he's the toy god. So let's introduce Matt. Matt, welcome. And I'm really excited to have you on. We're talking about this for a couple of months now between schedules. It's finally going to happen. So I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, guys, what's up? It's a pleasure to be being asked questions opposed to asking questions this time.
Yeah. And I have a lot of questions. So let's start. I know we got hard stops today on time. So let's start. I see all these toys in the background. I'm fascinated with this industry. As a kid, right? I mean, I can name 100 different toys that I played with that you probably at least have been involved with or know of. And now you've got all these new things going on. First of all, I want people to know, who is Matt? Who is the toy god? Let's talk about you a little bit. Like how you got started, what's your background, who you are.
What your favorite toy is.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we can do all that. So actually my story starts before I'm even born. My father started the toy industry in 1969, working for Ideal Toys in Aurora. Then the year I was born, he was recruited to a company called HG Toys, where they came in to sort of oversee design and development, and quickly realized they weren't doing too well, and then panicked because he was like, I got two kids at that point, and I was like, well, I'm not just going to sit here. And if anyone knows my father, he's a force of nature. Literally, like, walked into like the owner's office. This is like, you're making this, and you're making this, and within 10 years, they became the 17th largest toy company in the U.S. Wow. Manufacturing in New York.
Wow, that is insane. So I would have never have known that if I didn't ask that question.
Yeah. So you can actually find me on packaging for toys in the early 80s. My friends love to dig up the one of me on the Dukes of Hazzard playset package because especially now that there I am with a cowboy hat with the Confederate flag on the front, but yeah. So then around 1987. HG Toys got in some trouble because they moved their production to New Jersey, and they didn't do their due diligence, and Procter & Gamble was up the road paying twice what they were paying. So they had a labor problem. Wow. And so then they got bought out pretty quickly by Superior Toys in Chicago. My father's like, Brooklyn guy through and through. He's like, I ain't fucking moving to Chicago. And started Design Edge out of the garage. I was 14, and as I always say, I was drafted from day one. I had no choice but to be in Design Edge, along with my older sister. You know,
wow. So how old is your company? How old is Design Edge?
So 87 to now, was it 34 years?
Wow, that's pretty cool. And talk a little bit about how is that transition now? So you go back to 1969. The world's very different today. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at products and how you guys are getting involved, how is that transitioned? How do you have you transitioned into that? What's different, and what are you doing now?
Sure. Well, I can tell you actually about the benefits and the detriments. Actually, there's a lot more benefit. So I'm very fortunate to have been raised, not just by my father, but by a lot of guys that were old school toy guys back in the day when all production was done in the US, and there was, a million stores to sell to. And I learned a lot from these guys, but especially what I learned the most is I'm one of the few designers still in the US who understands manufacturing and have from day one. It's very hard. No design school really teaches that anymore. They pretty much have to go to learn engineering. But we understand the entire process and not just making something look cool. Because far too often people will send me stuff to get quoted from their designer who just drew a pretty picture, maybe did a couple of turnarounds or a quick CAD and doesn't understand the difference between, they don't even know what an undercut is. Mm-hmm. They're designing stuff that can't be tooled, or the tooling's going to be so ridiculous it's beyond belief. So I learned how to design with manufacturing in mind from the onset, which is a big plus. So
for me, that's a big asset, right? Yeah. For someone like you to have that, because you're right. I see so many designs that are not manufacturable. You got to change tooling, you got to round corners, or the tooling is just so expensive it makes no sense to do it that way. But you get some guys that are like hard about it. That's the way I want it. I said, well, okay, you're going to spend a lot of extra money on side loaders and injection pins when you don't need to.
Yeah. Well, the problem is from the onset, they went down this road that they probably could have gotten the same result if they had started with the right person from the beginning. But right. Since so much of it was designed improperly, to backpedal and redesign it in the little twist, they've already fallen in love with every nuance of what they've done. They've made 1,000 revisions and they finally got it to look this way that they want. But if they had worked with somebody who understood the process, they would have avoided those pitfalls.
And they already have a patent.
Yeah, and they have a patent. That's the other thing. I get everything's fully patented before they've even made a prototype, which drives me nuts because because then they panic, then they change. That makes it going to cost them more with their attorney, and I'm like, well, it's going to cost you even more in production, so you have to figure this out. So there's a lot of, especially with the UIA, we deal a lot with those, the startup inventor or the new entrepreneur who really needs the education, which is why the UIA is so heavily involved in we do. I mean, our whole purpose is to educate and advocate, right? So we need people to learn that you can't just have your friend who draws well design your product if they have no background in engineering or product design.
Yeah, and then you got to get other opinions, right? I hear so many of my friends think and my family thinks. So my next line is always, well, then have them cut you a check.
Yeah.
Like if everybody has an opinion, but nobody's willing to give you time and effort, just have them cut you a check.
Yeah, I mean, I often say, like, you had that guy give you an opinion, I wouldn't let him pick my socks. Do you see how horribly this person's dressed? Like now their opinion counts. Would you let? And then as soon as I point out, like, would you let them pick your clothes? Then all of a sudden, like, well, maybe not. Or far too often, my mother's favorite color is yellow. Can we make it yellow? I'm like, this isn't based on anything, But I get it, and those opinions should be voiced and they should be discussed. But but laying the law and drawing a line in the sand over these things because you're trying to appease all your friends and family is an insanely dangerous way to create a business.
Definitely. So, man, I look behind you, right? I'm always fascinated by all the things behind you. So, talk to me a little bit about that. Like, how much work is involved in that? Like, I understand what it's like to design something, how to release it. I know you're doing stuff all over the world. So, walk me through kind of the process before we get heavy into Design Edge and what you offer. Sure. Like, I love the stuff in the background, and it looks amazing, and it didn't just happen by accident.
Yes. Well, I mean, there's a few things behind me. Much of it we did. But the much older toys that you see there are just vintage toys that I've collected and whatnot. And over here, this is my 5th grade drawing of the Beatles, which one of my employees found once in a flat file and got it framed for me. So
Wow.
I had forgotten about it.
So you had talent from day one. You can draw. You got music talents. You're riding all these crazy bikes, and look at you coming up with all these fancy toys.
And yet I can't pat my stomach and rub my head. That's next to impossible. Very
We'll
confusing.
That's
your word
probably
on
a good thing. Yeah. So walk me through some of those. Walk me through like the process and how it started and where it ended.
Sure. So I mean, it's a different process than other industries in the respect for two reasons. One, it's primarily a fourth quarter business, right? So when you're doing like potty trainers, that's kids born every day, right? So you don't have to wait to the holiday season to sell potty trainers. But it's a fourth quarter business, and it's a fashion business. People don't realize how much of fashion business the toy industry is, and it wasn't always that way. When the toy industry as we know it today really came out of Europe, primarily Germany in the late 1800s, and sort of a lot of the old toy companies that you may be familiar with, whether they be Ideal or Marx Toys, those are generally companies that founders or parts of that company immigrated from Europe, settled in New York, Brooklyn, and Chicago, and started toy companies manufacturing things like dolls and whatnot. But what happened is the toy industry, specifically in the New York, was expanding. So was the fashion industry, right? So you get the fashion district and the toy districts overlapping, and a lot of the old garmentos started intermixing with the toy guys, and they realized there's something to be learned from both industries. And if we can make something hot for a little while, blow it up, and get rid of it, we're going to make more money. And they were jumping on trends. A great early example literally is the teddy bear, as if you are aware. Named after Teddy Roosevelt. This is not, and that was to capitalize on that's really early toy marketing. Fast forward today, blitzes of marketing campaigns to make something incredibly hot for 2 months, never to be seen again.
Yeah.
So we work for about, depending on the toy company, when we work for the large toy companies, we could be as far out as 2 years in advance. To the small toy companies, or we're working about a year out, and in some cases we have to work at breakneck speed to catch a trend, which if we're at best 6 months from design to retail, which is almost next to impossible. That means we really have to design everything within a month to get it tooled immediately. Tooling takes about 45 days, as you know. Production can take about another 30. Then you got another 30 days in the water, or 30 days of trucking to DCs if you're doing it domestic. So at best, that's what we can do.
So what type of clients do you normally see? Do you see clients that want to launch products, or do you see clients that truly just want to license it and get out of it, just collect a royalty check?
Well, most of my clients are established toy companies. Whether it be Hasbro or Fisher Price or Spin Master, these are each one of those is $1 billion company.
Right.
And we develop everything from product to inventing to them to packaging to engineering parts to whatever's needed. This designer wears a lot of hats. We essentially are a toy company that just doesn't sell to retail. We just develop for other people. But that said, so the majority of my customers are building for retail. But in the last few years, as I got more involved with inventors, I've sort of massive shift away from guys who were licensing product to manufacturing on their own. And that's primarily because you now have you don't need to have a vendor number and be able to get into Walmart or Target to make money. You can get it on Amazon. And if you're smart and you can figure out a great way to market and you've got a strong product, you can make more. Because would you rather make 5% of 50,000 pieces, or would you rather make 100% of 5,000 pieces?
Right. Yeah.
You can make a lot of money on a lot less, but you also have to be business minded. There's also people come to me, inventors, who I have to talk out of doing it themselves, because I'm like, it's not. Then the comparison I always make is you can't open a restaurant that you open when you feel like it. It's never going to survive. Mm-hmm. You have to be there, and you have to be attentive, and you have to work hard, and things aren't always going to go right, and you have to realize you need to handle it today and tomorrow and the next day.
And then you got to be able to fund it. That's always my challenge, is just like talking about and really educating the inventor that when you're launching a product, you're liable for it. I mean, you have to fund it. you have to have cash, you have to have the flow of it, you have to have, especially in retail, you know how that works. I mean, it's like if you see payment in 120 days.
Well, I mean, the good thing with if you have purchase orders, you can get factors, or you can get purchase order financing. But if you're dealing in the specialty business or with company or just selling on your own, you have to realize you're going to have to figure out where that cash flow is coming from. And starting a business from day one thinking you're going to do Kickstarter or finding an angel investor is nuts. Yeah. And I see that all the time. People are like, well, I'm just going to find an angel investor. I'm like, just like real angels, I have yet to have actually met one.
Yeah.
There's nobody running around just throwing money at something because you have a good idea. When do angel investors come in? They'll come in when you need seed money to grow it from a $5 million business to a $100 million business, not when you have a zero income business looking to turn it into something.
And pay yourself to go on vacation. And pay yourself.
Yeah, man, it's so true. And like I'm saying, who's going to give you, who's giving you 100K? Because I want to meet this guy.
Yeah.
And he doesn't expect to get anything back. I really want to meet him.
Well, I love the business plans I get when people want investment, and they have a little box in there for their own pay, and I'm like, I'm not giving you money to pay yourself.
It's a farce. And then I've met a handful of people that are supposed angel investors that when I start talking to them aren't angel investors at all. It's angles for consulting. They're going to help you find an angel investor. That's the other racket that I think needs to be investigated.
Yeah, right. So Matt, if I am an inventor and I have let's say an idea, and I do have some design work done, and I have something that's in a shape that may be ready for someone like you to look at, what's the process? What do you normally tell the inventor, and how to walk me through that whole process?
Well, I mean, if someone's looking to work with me, they can find me, LinkedIn. I'm, pretty established on. I know you guys see me on there, or they can go to designedge.net and contact us through our website. Primarily, usually I want to talk to them first before anything, before I see too much, just to make sure it's something that's, up my alley, or that we're on the same page. Because have had people try to take an idea that they've been sitting on for a long time, and then they try to morph it into a toy because it isn't doing anything. And sometimes, I mean, as an extreme example, and not that this ever happened, but someone would be like, yeah, I've got a hot water heater that could be converted to preschool. Like, what? This doesn't even make sense. It's like not even doable. But
it's a great idea.
I want to make sure that it's got a solid road to go down. And the toy industry has very specific avenues, right? It's the biggest problem the toy industry has in the traditional sense, meaning brick and mortar, is there are very few gray areas. So it's, somebody might come to me and they came up with an idea that crosses over two lines, where it can end up in either, let's say, the electronics aisle or the girls' activities aisle. If it's too blurry and it doesn't seem like enough of an activity or enough of an electronic, the buyers won't touch it. Wow. They'll just be like, we don't know which section to put it in. And they don't want to fight with their fellow buyer over something, so it's just not worth it to them. And it's hard to promote in their aisle because it's not electronic enough to be electronic, and it's not activity enough to be activity. And I get a lot of those, and some of those ideas are great, and those are the kind of people that probably might want to find that mysterious angel investor to see if they can launch it online, because perhaps that's the proper place for that. But at brick and mortar, those stores are planned out. Like, I'm sure you guys have walked through a planogram of a big retailer before. That's not accidental where things are.
And you said about the buyer fights, that's real. I've personally experienced that, where it can go in two categories, and they either say pick one, and that's the only one. I'm not trying to, like the buyers always say, we're not fighting for space. We have our own designated space, and this is what the category is. If you're in that category, like I've seen on TV versus hardware, they don't want anything to do with each other. All that sounds all pretty. It's the same company, whether it's Walmart or Menards or Target. But the reality is they have their own areas. They have to make money. The company has to make money, and it has to sell. And they're not fighting for real estate. Yeah, that is a really good point.
Yeah, it's true. And then the scary, the hard thing is that sometimes people will pitch me on the fact that they think that's the benefit. It can go in both activities and in electronics. I'm like, you just killed your own product. It's not going to go in either now.
Yeah. And it's true, because when it starts getting down to that and there is a fight for space, I find both buyers say, yeah, we're not interested.
Wow.
So you're right. You actually kill it. Unless you really can show proof of concept and a lot of sales, they're not interested.
Yep.
Wow. Hey, Matt, real quick, and this is, I've seen this happen before. There's some big players in the toy industry, and a lot of times, as you said, an inventor has a good idea, but the stores, I don't know if you've seen this or not, the stores won't take it on because the product has some other big toy manufacturer has a product that's similar on the shelves or something like that, and the store doesn't want to piss off that manufacturer.
Yeah, I mean, if they're, let's face it, the big guys have clout.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're a small toy company and you've got one good idea, they're not going to piss off the behemoths of the industry and then kick Barbie out of her section to put, your idea in. And again, the only way that you're going to establish that is through alternative channels.
Yeah.
Or if a giant company comes up behind it and say they're going to support it. And so, we'll use Barbie as an example. If there's very few people who can decide they're going to go up against her, and most have failed, if not all have failed. But unless you've got Hasbro money or MGM money to put, hundreds of millions of dollars in promotion behind it, the buyer's not going to kick you out because, irritating, Mattel is going to ruin a lot of other products that are on the shelf. That's also Uno, and then that's, all Fisher Price, and that's, probably every major toy you can think of off the top of your head is made by one of the three big companies.
Yeah. So speaking about that, man, talk to me how you work with the big companies. Do they come to you, ask you for design help, packaging? I mean, even the packaging stuff. Talk a little bit about that, because that's once you have that design done and you have the manufacturing side of it figured out, then the packaging is probably even more important in the end to catch attention. I mean,
oddly enough, my degree from FIT is actually in packaging. So I studied packaging because initially when my parents started this company, packaging was the majority of the work that we did. Packaging is super important. It's the front line of defense for retail sales as well as online, because all that imagery is used and it's incredibly thought out. And it's not just happen chance. There's theories on it. There's different types of packaging for different types of items. You do packaging different depending on the retailer, the demographic, the chain, how they market it. There's much different if you're selling a board game in specialty, where the jacket of the box can actually be more like a coffee table book and say very little, but just look really great, opposed to trying to get it on the shelf of a Walmart where it has to compete with 30 feet of other games. There's a lot going on. Packaging is incredibly important, and oftentimes, some of the large companies will put just as much money into the packaging as they will the product.
Wow.
Yeah, no question. I think I learned that early on, that without that packaging and without the visual of attracting someone to understand what it is, and then quickly, right, once they look at it, really get the message, you're going to lose them. Just as fast as they came over to you, you're going to lose them. Colors are important, right? Colors, shape, design. I mean, I love the PDQs on the center aisles. But you need a lot of sales for that, right? To get that real visual as you walk in, immediately attracts you to it. But
PDQs with the end caps, there's and then those companies fight for that space, and the packaging is part of it. We've worked on projects where products were sold very well, and they got to the point of being end capped, and then we redo the packaging again because now it's a different consumer experience. That's just the reality of it.
Wow. We're going through that a little bit now with Super Potty Trainer. Walmart is interested on an end cap in the baby section, so we're like going through the packaging stuff. I mean, I bet you can probably answer 100 of my questions. We won't do it now, but I'm sure you can, because you're right. It's a different view now, right? It's a different angle. It's a different presence, different audience when you're walking by. Maybe someone's not really going into the baby aisle, but they're walking by it, and now it catches their eye. So
yeah, listen, I have a ton of theories on packaging. A good example is people think of like a neighborhood in houses, right? You could take a beautiful house in one neighborhood and move it to another neighborhood, and now it's the standout weird house in that neighborhood because that neighborhood doesn't look like that. The same thing for retailers. You don't want the ultra modern house in the amongst all the Spanish colonial houses because it just doesn't fit.
Wow.
But that being said, I also have something that I always joke about, and I've actually written articles about it, which I call the Buscemi effect, which is like I liken it to Steve Buscemi and how insanely like weird looking he is, to the point where like he stands out because he's just different. And if you put Steve Buscemi in a room full of models, you might notice Steve Buscemi before you notice the models.
Well, I try to compare packaging because a lot of folks spend a lot of money and then they realize, oh, wow, I don't have enough money to spend on packaging, which is the most important thing. We used to joke about BMWs when they first came out, when I was running the plants, that somewhere someone ran out of money on the back end of the X5s. This is back in the 90s. They just ran out of money, said, okay, don't worry about it. Let's just cut it off, round out the lights, and we're good. No one's going to see that.
That's funny.
No, it's true. A lot of people, I'm surprised by how many small companies that would not skimp on their packaging, or they'll let the factory do it, or they'll or they have somebody like straight out of school do it. And I can always tell because there's so many standout classics. Like the one I can always tell is that it's someone right out of art school or someone who doesn't do packaging at all. Everything's monochromatic because it looks pretty when it's this close to you and you're staring at it. They don't realize monochromatic on shelf, you might as well just paint a camouflage.
Right.
You're going to walk right past it. I mean, essentially camouflage is monochromatic, right? It's the same thing. You're doing the same exact effect.
Wow.
And especially if you're working with big box mass, that's a nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Specialty again, the benefit to specialty, and I love specialty. In fact, the American Specialty Toy Retail Association show is in a few weeks. I will be there. I love that show, Astra, as it's called. But specialty has the added benefit of, the owner or the small staff will walk you around and be like, have you heard about this game? This game is fantastic. Have you seen this toy? And people have relationships in those stores and they'll walk in and they'll be like, hi, Chris, good to see you again. Oh yeah, Junior's birthday's coming up. Yeah, you should look at this. Target's never doing that.
Yeah, right. So let's close this out with what would you say is one of your favorite projects you worked on in the toy industry?
Oh, geez. I mean,
I'm sure you got quite a few. Grab one off the top.
Oh, I mean, it really is so many, and it varies so great. I mean, in my career, I've worked on everything from Tickle Me Elmo to Living Dead dolls. I mean, you couldn't have more.
Tickle Me Elmo. Now that's a standout.
Wow.
I mean, we worked on quite a few standouts, and I take serious pride that, at least in the last 15 years, there hasn't been one trip to a toy store where I can't find something I worked on.
Yeah, wow. That's pretty cool.
That's
so,
amazing.
So me nicknaming you Toy God is the real thing. I mean, I want people to know that. I know I joke around about it, but I honestly, like, your name is well known in the industry. You're a great guy to work with. You're a cool dude to hang out with. Those are all important factors of not just being really an expert in the field, but also having some fun while you do it. So I definitely appreciate that. Where can folks find you if they need to find you again? Go back to DesignEdge.net?
DesignEdge.net, or they can find me, Matt Nuccio, on LinkedIn, or they can email me at matt@designedge.net.
Yeah, and I was honored to have you at my Shark Tank.
Yep, that was a blast.
Party. That was a lot of fun. That was pretty cool to have all you guys there.
Yeah, yep, that was a lot of fun. It was good to see all, considering how rough the past year has all been, to see all those people face to face and the excitement of all the Shark Tank action. It was great.
Yeah, it was such a cool event, and it's it's one that you'll have for a memory forever. So thanks for that. Thanks for being the Toy God. So anybody out there, you got an idea, and it's not just toy, right? We got somebody that I think you're working with that has a food category, but it can fit into these different toy categories.
We've been hired by a lot of non-toy companies over the years to innovate in their areas, and companies such as Hanes Brands and Canon and my favorite. You'll like this. I like to tell people our clients range from Hasbro to Hooters.
There you go.
There you go.
Can't beat that one.
Just hit a home run.
And with that note, we're going. No, that's go great, man. It's awesome, man. So, all you guys out there, thank you for listening in today. We appreciate you. If you can, go on out to Google Play or iTunes. Make sure you download the latest version of Made in America show. Also, go on out to our YouTube page, Made in America YouTube. Right, Chris? What's the YouTube page?
Yeah, Made in America, and
Yeah.
it's on Inventor Launchpad.
Yep, Inventors Launchpad Network. We also have the YouTube page, Made in America. So we're going out there where you could actually see us and what we're talking about. We thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time on Made in America. You all take care.
Bye, guys.